Now, what's this show all about? Well, first off, what's Allie Ford all about? Okay, so folks, I met Allie 8 years ago. I started doing yoga 9 years ago. I did yoga 9 years ago. Allie brought to Pinellas County the first Vinyasa Ashtanga-based yoga studio. Absolutely awesome. She leads one of the most successful teacher training and immersion programs in the Tampa Bay area. Her students not only teach in Tampa, but they teach all over the world. Before this life, which you've had for 12, 15 years now?
15 years.
15 years. She worked in sales and marketing at Dell, Bristol Myers, IBM. She participated in taking 2 companies public through the IPO process. And now it comes to the great stuff. Totally. And what is that all about? What it's all about, folks, she's passionate about the healing power of yoga, about meditation, about bringing this to the mainstream, about changing everyone's life for the better on a continual basis. Allie also has a brand new CD out. You can get that CD. It's a beautiful chanting CD. You can get that CD at allieford.com. And allieford.com, you can go stay right at TFNN, and you'll see a banner on the right-hand side. And we are so proud of TFNN because Allie is hooked up at TFNN right now. She's going to be growling and prowling out here with us. She's the new tigress at TFNN. And thank you so much. She actually just went out, folks, and it's really cool. She just did an interview. Well, first off, welcome to TFNN.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Tiger family.
Thank you, Tom. I have to say, I'm so glad that you practice mindfulness with all the ebb and flows of the marketplace, because there's a lot going on over there.
There's a lot going on.
You've got to be able to focus and concentrate.
And so, folks, what's so cool about this is this. So check this out. No matter what we're doing in our lives, one of the keys, I think, on a continual basis is that you have peace, that you have harmony, why, and you have focus. Because the bottom line is that everyone is pulling you in a million different directions. The bottom line is that you have to figure out yourself first. And that is not easy.
No.
You know?
Takes time.
Takes time.
Yeah, but it starts just with a little awareness and a little effort, and that's what mindfulness is all about. And that's what the practices of yoga and meditation teach, and that is how to be mindful. What is mindful? In a very simple definition, it means that we are fully engaged in the present moment with our complete mind. So we're present, we have a clear mind, and we're paying attention, we're focused, we're concentrating on the present moment. And mindfulness is a hot buzzword right now, though of course it's not a new topic by any stretch of the imagination. It's thousands of years old, but catching a lot of momentum lately. In fact, there was a recent New York Times article online that's called Mindfulness Getting Its Share of Attention, and it claims that everywhere lately the here and now is the place to be. So a lot of people are taking an interest in these practices. That article lists companies like Google, General Mills, Facebook, Twitter, Target, and Aetna, encouraging their employees to sit and do nothing.
Well, you know, it's interesting. And folks, Google has one of the biggest presence in the deal. Search inside yourself, okay? And it's huge. And you can just picture, it works at Google, it works in life, and it's been around a long time. We get a couple of great guests coming up. One of them in particular, that Ellen Langer,
Yes.
that you know, has been into this for a huge amount of time. So bottom line, sit back, relax. Talk to me about the interview you did with Michael.
Sure.
And why? Why
Sure.
you did the interview?
Sure. So I had the great fortune of chatting with musician and humanitarian Michael Franti of Michael Franti and Spearhead, who was here in the Tampa Bay area on a promotional tour of his new album. Now, this guy's having a big year, okay? He has performed on David Letterman, Jimmy Kimmel Live. He's performing in major cities all across the United States, getting a lot of traction with his new album, and yet still finds time to reach out to people. So to me, he is the perfect example of how one would live mindfully. He actually does practice yoga and meditation himself.
Okay.
And one of the coolest benefits that mindfulness practices brings is this ability to connect with others. We call that in science emotional intelligence, which is another hot buzzword right now. And it just means I can tell when you're upset and I know how to respond to you. You can imagine a world, right, not being able to know when your colleague's angry or
Sure.
when your friend or child is sad. So being able to be present in the moment, also helps you improve your relationships. Michael Franti is a person who, as busy as he is and as successful as he is, finds time in everything that he does to reach out to other people and share positive energy and make the world a better place. So he's also recently launched a new organization called Do It for the Love.
And so we're going to listen to this interview, folks. This is an awesome interview.
Namaste, everybody. Namaste, everybody. It's Allie Ford here with Michael Franti, musician and humanitarian, who's here in St. Petersburg, Florida, on his promotional tour for his new album, All People. And he's just recently launched a humanitarian organization called Do It for the Love. Michael, thanks for chatting with me for a few minutes.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited for your show tonight, and congrats on the new album. It's so amazing.
Thank you.
I want to talk about Do It for the Love. Just tell us in your own words what the mission of this organization is.
Well, Do It for the Love is a gift-granting organization that brings people with advanced stages of life-threatening illnesses and kids with severe challenges and wounded veterans to live concerts. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like a Make-A-Wish Foundation for music. And I believe in the healing power of music. And I also believe that it's great for not only people who are sick, but their caretakers and family members to have a break, to be able to get out of the house and to be able to experience music together. And Sarah, jump in here real quick. Come on in here.
Come on in, Sarah. Beautiful Sarah. This is Michael's partner, Sarah, co-founder of Do It for the Love.
Sarah and I were at a festival here in Florida this April, and we met this couple named Steve and Hope December. And Steve is living with ALS, and he said, I really want to come to your concert. You're one of my favorite artists, and I'd love to meet you. And he tweeted at us, so Sarah said, let's Google him, and we did. And what did we see?
Well, we got to see Steve and Hope, Steve before he started his, changes from ALS, and so being a nurse, we're always curious about the story. And so when we got to meet them the next day, it was really emotional, incredible to see, to understand who he was, what he did, what his job was, who Hope was before she became his full-time caregiver, and we had a chance to visit with them. So they really were a big Spearhead fan, Michael Franti fan, so we took them to the side of the stage and got them all set up at this festival. And so Michael's song Life is Better With You came on, which is one of my favorites.
Mine too, and my kids love it, by the way, my husband and my children. And so Michael invited Hope and Steve to go on stage, and he introduced them to the crowd, and it was really amazing because everyone saw Steve riding around in his wheelchair all weekend. They just didn't know who he was. They just knew him as the guy in the wheelchair, and this really was able to give Steve a voice and introduce him to everyone, and so people could understand what he was going through and who he is. And with Do for the Love, we want people to understand that you're going through these challenges and we're supporting you, and we're still living life, and you're just experiencing it in a different way. And so Michael played a song, and Steve whispered in Hope's ear, I want to get up out of my chair, and Hope lifted him up in front of 20,000 people, and there was not a single dry eye. Everyone was very emotional, and it was a really amazing moment for them and a great memory. And that's what we're trying to create. We wanted to do that for as many people as we possibly can. And so to help make the families feel significant, caregivers, and really raise awareness. Right. And so for those of us who understand the healing power of music and who experience it, or at least have experienced how music can be so transformational, what would you guys like for us at home to do? How can we get involved with Do It for the Love?
Well, you can go, if you have a friend or family member who wants to have a musical experience, could be any band. If you want to see a heavy metal show, you want to go to the opera, whatever, write to us and we'll do our best to make that happen. And if you want to volunteer or give in some way to help support the foundation, you can also go to Do It for the Love and learn how you can donate or become a volunteer in your own community.
Thank you so much, you guys. So inspiring. And I want you guys to know that if you're interested in seeing the story of Hope and Steve, please go to doitforthelove.org, where you can watch a very touching story of their inspirational story and how it really inspired you guys, Sarah and Michael, to begin this beautiful organization. Thanks so much for being here, guys.
Thanks for
really nice to chat with you. Yeah.
Out something more about Michael and Do It for the Love right under breaking news at TFNN. You're going to see doitforthelove.com.
So, folks, we are so honored and privileged today to have our next guest on the line with us to talk more about mindfulness and why it's so interesting to not only individuals but to professional organizations today. Dr. Alan Langer, Harvard professor of psychology, mindfulness research pioneer, and best-selling author of books including Mindfulness, The Power of Mindful Learning, On Becoming an Artist, and her most recent book, Counterclockwise, Mindful Health and the Power of Possibility. Ellen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for calling in today. So, Ellen, you've been studying mindfulness since the 1970s, sometimes in the 70s, yeah?
In the early 70s, yes.
Early 70s.
I started when I was about 10.
I love it. That's right. And by the way, I love your art. Your art's amazing.
Thank you.
And folks,
nice
Ellen's website is right into the TFNN, ellenlanger.com. Check it out.
How did this topic become the focus of your work, Ellen?
Oh, gee. Well, it's hard to say working backwards, but I had originally started working on choice. And I started working on choice when my grandmother went into a nursing home, and it seemed pitiful to me and something that I wanted to do something about, because the people there were barely alive, even though they were breathing and physically not in bad shape. Mm-hmm. And so I studied choice. We did the study where Judy Roden and I, where we gave people plants to take care of, choices to make, and found that they lived longer. Mm. So then I pursued that, trying to think, well, what is it about choice? And from that, I came to my concept of mindfulness. And so it's not so much the choice itself. What's important is the active noticing of new things. Mm-hmm. When you're actively noticing new things, that puts you in the present. You know, lots of people who say, be in the moment. Mm-hmm. And that's really an empty instruction, although it's sweet. Mm-hmm. It's empty because when you're not in the moment, you're not there to know that you're not there. And all of these many, many years of research has made clear to me that most of us, much of the time, are mindless. We're on automatic pilot. We're not there, and we don't know that we're not there. Mm-hmm. So the process of just noticing things tells you that, gee, you didn't know it as well as you thought you did. Mm-hmm. And then you naturally pay more attention to it. Mm-hmm. And then, you know, I started this, again, back in the early 70s. I haven't been able, in some sense, to get away from it because no matter what you're doing it mindfully or mindlessly. So anything else I might think to study would take me right back to this. Yeah. And so we have, you know, if you're playing a musical instrument, if you're giving a talk, watching television, having a party, no matter where you are or what you're doing it in one of these two states. And the research makes very clear that the consequences of being in one state or the other are enormous.
It's pretty cool, Ellen, right? Now, folks, if you Google Ellen Langer and put YouTube in the same time, she had done a YouTube for a conference, and it's dynamite. You know what's really cool, Ellen, is that once you understand you're either mindless or you know, mindful, it's like, oh, man, this is a trip. I mean, it's pretty cool, because Allie had texted me earlier, and I didn't read the second sentence. I says, there you go. I'm mindless right now.
Well, I tell you that, you know, what happens is I find myself after all these years, and now clearly caring about this, knowing how important it is,
yes,
to me personally, and just, you know, then to everybody else in a different way, I still find periodically I'm mindless. But my reaction is different. My reaction is, yes, I'm right. So it's okay. But I had done this thing the other day. I gave a talk, it was a while ago now, to about 5,000 women who had breast cancer. And I was talking about mindfulness, and I was very excited while I was doing this. I talked for about an hour, and then I went home and realized I left my coat there. So,
well, you didn't need a coat. It was,
then I say
it was probably 60 degrees in Cambridge, right?
No. Then I say to myself that if I'm still mindless after studying this for so many years, caring about it, it seems to support the idea that it's pervasive, but all of the research makes that clear to me.
Right. You have a really refreshing take on mindfulness, and that is that one could actually learn to be mindful quite simply. It doesn't have to be sort of an esoteric practice that's difficult or unattainable.
Yeah, right. Well, you know, meditation is a tool. It's nothing more than a tool. It's a very effective tool, but a tool to result in post-meditative mindfulness. So as with all things, that there are many ways of getting to basically the same place. For me, I've noticed that there are some people who don't want to meditate, they can't meditate, and a lot of my friends can't sit still for 5 minutes once a day, so they're not going to be able to meditate, which requires sitting still for 20 minutes twice a day.
Right.
So this is a nice alternative. But the two are not at odds. Again, back in the early 80s, we did research on meditation. There are two ways of getting to the same place. When you're there, you're in the moment, you're sensitive to context, you tend not to be evaluative any longer because you see that everything cuts both ways. You're kinder to yourself and to other people just as a consequence. Mm-hmm. And the fun thing is that being mindful in this way, noticing new things, is really energy begetting. It's not difficult. You know, and I say we should be mindful all the time, and somebody's going to say, oh my gosh, I can't imagine being mindful. Isn't that exhausting? And that's because they're thinking of mindfulness as thinking, and people don't think correctly, I think, about thinking. Mm-hmm. They think thinking is hard. What's hard is the evaluation. What if I don't get the answer right? You know, what if I don't get it in time? And so on. That's what becomes stressful. Stress is definitely mindless. But mindfulness itself is the essence of humor. So that, you know, that should make clear that it's not hard. Actually, you know, you have lots of people who spend a lot of money to travel. And one thing about traveling is that probably because they've spent this money is they expect to see new things. Mm-hmm. So it's that expectation of seeing new things that makes the trip exciting.
Sure.
But everything around us is new. All the people that we see every day are new every time we see them. Mm-hmm. So we can save a lot of money and just travel more with our minds.
Right, and find the excitement. Find the excitement right here in this moment.
Exactly.
That, like, our normal daily life doesn't have to be so boring.
Exactly.
Ellen, can you talk a little bit about, you know, you had probably said, well, some people thought they can't do meditation. I mean, my understanding, listening to you and watching the YouTube, is that your understanding would be that, hey, we can do everything. There's no such word as can't.
Oh, yes, exactly. But, you know, but it's just that there are some people, you know, that you're not going to get to. You know, they've made a commitment to be mindless and, you know, and to see that they can't do, you know, whatever it is they think they can't do. And for those people, this is a very simple alternative. But for the people who are meditating, it's also something that they should be doing. Uh-huh. You know, so that the meditation will result eventually in post-meditative mindfulness. But while you're on that journey, you can be doing it immediately. You know, you meditate, you wake up, you start eating breakfast, notice what's new about the room, the people in it, if there's anybody in it, yourself, how you feel, how you look, and so on.
So what do you think about, you know, you started this, well, you know, probably started 5,000 years ago, but you brought it to many people years ago,
thank
right?
You.
And now what you have is, you know, it's a buzzword.
Yeah, that's both pleasing and distressing in a certain way.
Yeah, I bet.
Which is where you're headed. So, yes, I'm in agreement with that. But if I put my ego aside, you know,
yes.
that it's more, it's very uplifting to know that people are paying some attention. The reason that it's a little disconcerting is basically because when concepts get out there without people really understanding them, you know, they fade in the same way.
Yes.
And when people just use the word, this has a very specific meaning. Mm-hmm. It's a very specific way of being. It's not a practice. It's just being there. Mm-hmm. But, you know, and lots of the people who have studied meditation, now if you look historically, you'll see that almost all of them have come around to the meditation being less important, which is not to demean in any way, again, meditation.
Sure, but it is a tool. That makes a lot of sense, yeah. And it is a little concerning that such an important lifestyle or way of existing could lose perhaps some of its meaning by being overused.
Yeah, but I'm less concerned because the world is, or at least our culture, is becoming much more health conscious. Mm-hmm. And that's in part because of the graying of America. Mm-hmm. You know, so as we have so many baby boomers now, and so as people become health conscious and they start doing yoga and, you know, just starting to change their lifestyles, it's a natural part of that change.
Speaking of health, Dr. Langer, I think it's so interesting that a lot of the research that you've done seems to seems to communicate that a lot of disease in the body is psychosomatic. Is that true?
Oh, yes.
What would you say, what percentage?
People, it's interesting that people sometimes hear that word and think, oh, my goodness, psychosomatic. No, my pain is real.
Right.
So it's not to say it's not real. It's to say that the origin and the potential treatment can be psychological.
Right.
I think the medical world is starting to appreciate how important, how deleterious stress is.
Mm-hmm.
And, the whole body is affected when one is stressed.
Mm-hmm.
And stress is clearly psychological. Events don't cause stress. What causes stress are the views you take of events. But there's something else that I write about in the Counterclockwise book, which is all about health.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that is that when people are given a diagnosis of a chronic disease, the way they understand that typically is that they have no control over it.
Yes.
So if you believe you have no control, then you don't pay any attention to it. And it's in paying attention where you may find solutions. So we've done lots of research. We just finished actually a study on arthritis, but we have many of them, where we get people, I think the easiest way for me to tell you this is, let's say you have asthma. Now, so when you have asthma and you can't breathe, you use the inhaler.
Mm-hmm.
People tend not to pay attention to when they need the inhaler and when they don't.
Mm-hmm.
If they simply attended to the variability, noticing when they did, when they didn't need it. So you would just, we can call them a few times randomly throughout the day. Then they would see, when I'm doing a radio show, I need the inhaler. Well, if that were, and when I'm not on a radio show, I don't need the inhaler. If that were the case, then the cure is simple. I don't do the radio shows,
Right.
or do them differently.
Right.
You see, so what happens is nothing stays the same. And the culture has taught everybody to try to hold everything still, thinking that that leads to control. We do that with people. I call you a good guy, a bad guy, whatever. That by holding it still, it's as if I can control my reactions to you and so on. But in fact, people, symptoms, everything is always changing. And if you pay attention to the changes, you say, gee, now it's a little better, now it's a little worse, and you ask the question, why? Then you go on a search for the answer. That search is mindful. So that other research we have says that's good for your health. So even if you don't find the answer, you're helping yourself. Mm-hmm. But as with the radio show example, sometimes you find the answer.
Mm-hmm.
There are two major approaches that we've taken to disease. One is this attending to change, because nothing stays the same. So to gain control, you attend again to how it's changing. The other is based on work. I don't know if you know my work on counterclockwise, that counterclockwise study.
I read the first chapter last night, and you know what I loved? I absolutely, you have a huge financial audience here also, and Allie's bringing this mainstream, and it was so cool about you talk about probabilities and folks. Google this, and because it's so cool, Ellen. I was reading this, and of course it's probabilities. Mm-hmm. And as you explain it, I mean, that's all I do is probabilities, 24 hours a day. So
okay, but I want to talk just briefly about this counterclockwise study, and then if anybody is interested, I have a new website, LangerMindfulnessInstitute.com, because I'm bringing this to the public now. But the counterclockwise study, it follows a very simple idea about mind and body. And the mind-body problem for years had always been, how do you get from this fuzzy thing called a thought to something real, the body? Mm-hmm. And no one's been able to answer that question. Well, for me, I said, mind, body, these are just words. Let's put them back together. Then wherever we're putting the mind, we're necessarily putting the body. And that would explain spontaneous remissions, placebos, lots of things out there. So we did a host of studies described in the Counterclockwise book. We put the mind in a healthy place, take the measurements from the body. The original study, we had taken these men in their 80s. They were old. This is when 80 was 80. It was many years ago. And we had them live for a week in a retreat that had been retrofitted to 20 years earlier.
Yeah.
At that time, during that week, they spoke about the past, but in the present tense. Mm-hmm. So then was now. Right. So their mind is in this healthier place, this time when they were vital. And we had a comparison group that reminisced for the week. At any rate, they improved in ways that I still think are phenomenal. Their vision improved, their hearing improved, their memory improved. We took photos of them before and after. They were rated as looking younger. Now, they didn't look 20 years younger, but they looked significantly younger than the comparison group and than the way they did when they first got there. And so we followed that in many other studies. For example, this is where you put your mind, you put the body. So everybody knows about the Snellen eye chart. This is the way the doctor tells you if you need glasses or not.
Sure.
Okay, so you look at the eye chart, and what you know is that the letters get progressively smaller. But what most people don't think about is that by the letters getting progressively smaller, as you move down the chart, the expectation is soon you won't be able to see.
Yes.
So we did this very simple thing. We reversed the order of the eye chart. So your mind now is expecting soon you will be able to see. And people were able to see what they couldn't see before.
Wow.
It certainly lends
That's
itself
wild.
right to the power of the mind.
Yes.
Right.
So, Dr. Langer, we want to thank you so much for taking some time with us today, and we hope that you will spend some more time with us. We need to do a whole show with you. Everything that you're saying is so fascinating, and folks, we highly recommend Dr. Langer's new book, Counterclockwise. Go to her website or come to TFNN for her information. Dr. Langer, thank you so much again.
Well, thank you for having me again. Be well.
Thanks so much.
Be well.
Have a great one. Have a safe one.
Thank you.
Now, you know what's so cool here? Okay, so folks, okay, this is, needless to say, just all about mind, all about health, all about, we're going to go from the academic, okay, now we're coming to the businessman.
The application, yeah. So you heard what Dr. Langer just said. There is so much power in our mind, and being mindful, part of being mindful would be being aware of how we're treating our body, how we're eating, our diet, our relationships with others, as we discussed, and even, as Dr. Langer discussed, the types of thoughts that we're having. Our next guest is Rod Taylor, President and CEO of Barksdale Federal Credit Union, a $1.2 billion credit union with 360 employees in Shreveport, Louisiana. He's also a featured speaker at the Russian Credit Union League annual conference for the last 5 years in association with the World Council of Credit Unions. Rod is an avid yoga and meditation practitioner, and he's here with us today to talk about the implications that these practices are having in his life. Rod, welcome to the show. Rod, are you with us?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Absolutely.
How you doing, Rod?
Hi, Rod. How you doing?
Good. And Tom, I love your show, and I guess Allie has a way of getting us all out of our comfort zones, doesn't
Yeah, listen, you know what's so funny about this? You got to picture this, folks, okay? I've seen your picture, right? And let me tell you, it is so great because he put someone tweeted out something in the middle of the picture. What happens, folks, in this business? Just so you know, okay? There's not a lot of guys in this business, okay? Well, let me tell you something, okay? Rod was in the Coast Guard. I was in the Marines. Don't be afraid of being peaceful and mindful and happy, folks, okay? It's where it's at.
Yes, it is. It is. And you're so much more pleasant to be around.
Oh.
We should have more guys like you in this world.
I'm telling you.
So, Rod, when did you start practicing yoga? I'm curious how you got into it.
Yeah, well, it hasn't been that long. It's been about 2 years. And I was at a point in my life where I put on a lot of weight and figured I needed to get back to the gym and do something about all the stress in my life. And I joined a fitness center, and I had a choice. I was doing cardio and some weights and stuff for a while, but I had a choice between two classes one day, and one was Dancing Divas.
Okay.
and or Power Yoga, and
I can see you
either
do it,
a Marine
Rod.
or an ex-coastie, Dancing Divas had to go to the side.
Right. No, I can see you being comfortable enough in your manly self that you could experiment with Dancing Divas.
But I got into this Power Yoga class, and it was an hour long. And it really felt like boot camp at Alameda Island. At the end of it, I couldn't get off my mat, and I said, there's something to this.
Yes.
If nothing else, the exercise element. And so I started going about 3 or 4 times a week. and just got more and more into it. Got to meet some of Ali's proteges, and I'll talk about them in a second. But so it got to the point where I was doing it 6 days a week and really loving it.
Nice.
And two of my instructors, Holly and Anna, both students of Ali's, encouraged me over to go to Ali's program this year, and I was a little apprehensive because I really wasn't that proficient at all. And but I got to know some of the yoga community over time, and Ali is a superstar in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Right.
And there was this buzz throughout the community that Ali's coming, and she really did come in like a force of nature. And it's incredible. I mean,
it's true though. It is. It is absolutely true. Right.
She really is going to be, as the centuries move on, known as the mother of yoga in Shreveport. Because
I love it.
Oh, thank you, Rod.
And so, I mean, the community has grown. It's all been because of Ali. And anyway, every time she comes in, truly the amount of yoga in this area doubles. And just to give you an example, last week she finished the latest teacher training course. And now I am happy to announce there's the first ever yoga studio in Marshall, Texas, called Core Yoga and Fitness.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, so Kim and Cindy, who were in that class, are going to be starting that in about 3 weeks. So
wonderful.
Give them a shout-out for that.
That's great.
That is so great.
Yeah, good luck to Kim and Cindy.
So anyway, what happened was I met Ali, and that's really when I fell down the rabbit hole.
So, Rod, talk to us about some of the changes that you've seen personally and professionally, and not only physically, but maybe mentally or socially in some of your relationships.
Sure. The first thing that the biggest change, obviously, was the health benefits. And I've lost 50 pounds.
Wow.
Awesome.
Through yoga.
Yeah.
But people ask all the time, you know, can I lose weight doing yoga? And yes, you can. Yeah.
And Ali gave me these techniques to handle stress, and there is a lot of stress in this job. 80% of it's coming from Washington, D.C.
Sure. All the regulations, right. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. And, one of the first things that happened with Ali was with balancing exercises, and I would fall.
Oh, tell me about it.
And, being that competitive nature is, okay, all of a sudden, you, like Dr. Langer said, you're living in the past, you're living in the future, you're not living in the present, and you're competitively trying to get up there, and it just gets worse and worse. And that was sort of a metaphor for a lot of things that were happening in my life once I tried to get too competitive. So, Ali's training, she's certainly my yoga instructor, but she's also a life coach too. I want to definitely mention that. But, it got to the point where when you fall out of a position, you say, oh, look, I fell out of a position, and you move back into it because you're always in the moment. And it's night and day of the way you react to things.
Right. Isn't it cool that, when you start doing this, you like it, but like when I started doing it, I didn't know why I liked it, but I knew I liked it. It was like, okay, hold it. What is this?
Exactly.
Whatever, it's good. And then it keeps getting better. And then you start figuring it out. And then once you figure it out, you say, well, I guess the whole rest of our lives we'll try to figure it out. But once you think you know it a little bit better, then you're really psyched. It's like, man, this is intense.
Yeah. You realize the changes.
Yeah. And the meditation part of it was really very important to me too. And when we started into the class 9 months ago, Ali was gentle with us. She would start with 5 or 6 minutes, and literally, we had students who wanted to run out of that studio screaming because of it. And it's just it's a hard thing to do. That mindfulness and quiet. My priest, I come from an Eastern Orthodox Greek Orthodox tradition, and in our tradition we have something very similar to the things that I was learning in yoga. It's called hesychasm, or stillness of the heart. And I was truly amazed as I studied how similar they are in nature. But the difference being is that in the faith communities, it really wasn't being taught. I found a way, sort of a template to overlay on my faith this type of thing where you can be in the moment. And, we teach that every moment should be paradise and that eternity, but it's so hard to get there and
yes.
get the techniques to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's so interesting you say that, because in Dr. Linger's work, one of the presentations I've watched of her, she said that most, if not all, of our suffering is due to the fact that we are not mindful, that we're out of the present moment. So that's very interesting that through your own experience, you're finding that this practice of stillness or mindfulness, well, as you say, should be, every moment should be a blissful moment. So the promise is big.
What's amazing is that if you are in the moment, it is paradise.
Yeah.
Rod, I had said to Allie a little bit earlier, as to the meditation, is that, at the beginning, I'm saying to myself, hold it, how am I going to plan? I have plenty of desires, I have plenty of dreams. And I'm saying to myself, hold it, if I'm going to stay in the moment, how am I going to do all this stuff? And then I finally figured out, hold it, that means I just got to, when I'm planning, I got to be in the moment of planning.
That's
okay?
Right.
If I'm dreaming, I got to be dreaming. If I got but it's an evolution, there's no doubt, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because, we have a wellness program here at the credit union. We already are offering yoga classes to our staff.
Yes.
And it's giving these people tools to deal with the stress of modern living. And I say that, I look at myself and I find myself oftentimes living from moment to moment, wondering, okay, is my smartphone charged, and where am I going to get my next charge?
Wow.
And and
thank God you're in yoga.
Yeah.
That's when you got to step back and say, wait a second, you're living in the madness, and you got to step out of that madness for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, you have a huge amount of responsibility too. I mean, that's you have the largest credit union in Louisiana, right? I mean, it's huge. Yeah.
Which I have to say, Rod, from the moment I met you, it was just such an inspiration to me that you, a man who is so busy and has so much responsibility, are taking time out to do this for yourself, because it can only translate to your every role that you're in, especially the one as CEO of the credit union. So when you say you're thinking of bringing it to your employees, what implications do you hope that will have in terms of increasing your yoga and mindfulness offerings for your employees?
Sure. Well, if we put it to hard dollars, right now our health insurance cost is about $1.9 million a year. And every year we get that rate increase. Next year is going to be 7%. It's a big thing.
Big dollars, yeah.
It's a big thing to manage. And but with even just 20% of the employees in the wellness program, we get a 2% discount, which is good. I mean, so we go from 7% to 5%. Mm-hmm. So we have that as a measurable thing immediately. But and I was talking with our HR person the other day, because we're discussing ways to be able to measure what kind of effect this will have at the organization, because right now it's anecdotal. I can tell you what's happened. It's semi-anecdotal. I can tell you what's happened to me. I can show you the pictures of me 3 years ago and the pictures of me now, and that's measurable. But what we need to do is figure a way to be able to measure what it's going to do for the wellness and well-being of our employees, and I know it will happen. Mm-hmm. And one of the things we're talking about is doing a company-wide survey of where they are, and I don't want to use the word happiness survey, but really it is. Where are they in their life right now? Because there's a lot of stress here. I mean, they have a lot of technology. It's a lot of service, dealing with people on a day-to-day basis with their finances. It can put a lot of stress on the employees. But they got stress in other parts of their lives as well.
Yeah.
and some of them have high energy, others have very low energy, and there are ways in terms of this mindfulness and yoga that you can, monitor and maintain higher levels of energy, productivity, happiness, and so it'll be interesting. It's sort of a step out for us a little bit, not too much. I think we're a pretty progressive organization. But I'm really looking forward to this next stage.
You know what's so cool, Rod? And folks, credit unions in general are empowering people and communities, and they always have. So it's really cool in the context of what you're doing, whether it's your employees touching other people in the community. I mean, because the credit union business is the best banking business we have in the United States.
Thank you, Tom. I think so, too.
Yeah, no, seriously, you should talk a little bit about that, because I don't think people really understand. We have a lot. Right now there's a CFO of another credit union in Boston that's listening right now. He's a huge fan. He's a huge trader. He's a great person. And I really learned a lot about credit unions in general from him. So talk about a credit union a little. That would be cool, just so people understand, even in their own communities.
Sure. We have about 100,000 members right now in North Louisiana and further down to the central part of the state, and certainly some who have moved out of the area that are still members of the credit union. Very interesting thing about our organization is that we were given by the federal government, our regulators, a designation of low-income credit union, because out of our 100,000 members, when they did the census, and when they come in and do our examination and stuff, they match the census with our data. Turns out that 64% of our members are in low-income designated households.
Okay.
That equates to 64,000 of our members are in low-income designated households. So we feel like, certainly we are a service to the community that is above and beyond what most financial institutions can do.
Sure.
We're real proud of that. We're also, we're in the commercial area now and helping small businesses. And one of the things in Russia that's very interesting when I go over there, a lot of that is microfinancing. There is a lot of pensioners and stuff that go to these small credit unions, but a lot of people are starting small businesses over there, and they go to the credit union for it because the banks won't touch them.
Yes.
Yeah. And we find some of that happening here. Not as much, but so we are in competition with all the banks.
Yes, no, there's no doubt. Now, the credit union is owned by the shareholders, by the account holders. How does that work?
Exactly. We have a field of membership, and our field of membership we're in Louisiana, so it's all parishes. So we have a bunch of parishes in northwest Louisiana that if you live, worship, or work in any of these parishes, you can join the credit union.
I see. Okay.
And once you join, you are an owner. You have everyone, no matter how much money they have in the institution, has one vote for representation on the board of directors. So our board is completely volunteer. They're non-paid, which to me, there's a lot of fiduciary responsibility, especially for a billion organization. These people have been here for a while, and their heart is in it. Tonight, actually, I'm going to, and this really is an outreach that is really down Allie's
Alley. Pun intended.
It was going to come out that way.
Totally.
But tonight I am going to be hosting a dinner for our employees up in the northern region of the state who for their volunteerism. And they volunteer points, and we have about 100 people that are going to be at that dinner who have just given back to the community so much. So we do. We're high impact socially in our community.
Yeah. It's no surprise. I mean, Guy, you've always been, Rod, a person with a big heart. And again, I've felt that since I met you. And I think that it's because of people like you that, you experiencing the benefits of the practices that you're taking, that you will help introduce it to help countless others. So thank you for being a role model in that way.
You bet. And one last thing I'd like to mention is that you asked how it's changed my life.
Right.
One of the things that has happened is I travel a lot in the country. I'm in a lot of boards and stuff, and wherever I go, if yoga is mentioned, I immediately am attached to 5 or 6 people who are also doing yoga.
That's so great.
It really is wonderful, and I'm on the board of the NAFCU, which is the National Association of Federal Credit Unions, up in Washington. And our newest board member is the CEO of the State Department Federal Credit Union, and she is an avid yoga practitioner, and so there was an immediate bond. So if you go to any of these conferences, all of a sudden you'll see small groups of people. The odds are they're talking about yoga.
Right.
you know, folks, the point Rod's bringing up is amazing, okay? Because I'm telling you, I can actually walk anywhere right now, and I can, when I'm scanning a crowd, you can see it. You absolutely can see it. And when you're traveling, there's no doubt. And the community, folks, is amazing.
Yeah.
You know, it's really cool, man.
Yeah. Welcoming.
Allie is a remarkable representative of that community. I'm very proud of her.
Thank you, Rod, and congratulations to you for graduating from the Teacher Training 2013 Yoga Teacher Training Program.
Folks, because what they're talking about here, this is not like a regular yoga deal. You know, I've seen the teacher training, and I've seen these students come out, and when they come out, right, they're looking, I said, she beat you up today? And they're like, oh.
It can be mentally exhausting.
It's just like boot camp, folks. Listen, it's dynamite. I'm not saying that, but that's a big commitment, and congratulations, because it's awesome.
Yeah, and with all the other things that you have going on, it's impressive that you found time for that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Rod, for being with us today and taking some time to share your story with us.
It's my pleasure.
Hopefully, I'll see you soon. I'll be back in Shreveport soon.
Absolutely.
Namaste.
Namaste.
Namaste. Thanks so much, Rod. Have a great one. Have a safe one. Amazing. See, you're making a mark everywhere. There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
Yeah, it's funny, though. You know, yoga, as you said, is so old. And I look to the example of my teacher, and who never took credit for anything. I mean, he always said, I too, am a student. And I just love that about yoga and all of these practices, that it really does instill such humility and humbleness, or at least tries to help us understand that aspect of life.
Right. Now, is it to be a teacher in San Francisco, or when you went to India, or of all your teachers?
My first teacher was this amazing Ashtangi in the San Francisco Bay Area, John Berlinski, and his beautiful wife, Leah Watkins, who, if you're in the area, you have to go and practice with them. And then, of course, I had the privilege of traveling to India to study with the guru of Ashtanga, Sri K. Patabi Joyce, and he always said, I, too, I'm a student. You know, and he said, one can study all you want, but unless you're actually doing the work, you're only full of information, no understanding.
Practice.
Yeah, and have a beginner's mind. Be willing to learn always, which I love that attitude.
Right, right. And then being here now, yesterday's gone, tomorrow's not here, what are you doing right now?
Exactly. Right? Like Dr. Langer said, finding what's different in this moment. And then when you do that, it becomes fascinating.
It does. Folks, you can just walk down the street. What I want everyone to do right now, I don't care if you're in your car, you're walking. When you're walking, talking, squawking, okay, just look around. Just look around, and you're going to find things. Okay, so check this out. You know, we get this real estate company now. When I go in these places right now, I've seen cracks. I can see little tiny cracks this big now. And I'm driving them crazy, actually.
Good somebody is, though, noticing that.
Listen, folks, thanks so much for being with us. Allie Ford, thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom.
You're absolutely awesome.
Pleasure being here.
And folks, we are going to be coming back. You have a great weekend, safe weekend. Of course, we look forward to speaking to you next Monday.
Happy Friday. Happy weekend.
Wow!
I get a good feeling, yeah. Oh, sometimes I get a good feeling.